Okay, so you're here with us because you want to go beyond the headlines, cut through all the clutter, and really get a handle on what makes history tick. And today, we're going deep into a period and a character that just, I think, embodies that spirit of strangeness and consequence.
Oh, absolutely.
Grigori Rasputin.
Yeah, bigger than life.
The final years of the Russian Empire.
Right.
And we're using as our guide Princess Catherine Radziwill and her book Rasputin and the Russian Revolution.
A fantastic source.
So forget that, the sort of spooky Rasputin, from the movies and the campfire stories.
Right, the myths.
We want to get into, like, what forces were really at work here.
Yeah, how did this even happen?
Yeah, to allow a figure like this to become so influential.
Well, and to really even start to grasp that, I think you've got to picture Russia at the turn of the 20th century.
Right.
I mean, it was a land of just absolutely staggering contrast.
Yeah.
You had this immense wealth and privilege, the aristocracy.
But existing right alongside just crushing poverty, hardship for the vast majority of Russians.
Almost like a powder keg waiting,
Exactly. And then layered on top of that, you have this fascinating clash
Yes.
between these very ancient, almost medieval folk beliefs,
Yep.
right? And the rapid changes of modernization,
Right.
industrialization, all of that. And Radziwill really hits on something crucial here, the emergence of these sometimes extreme spiritual groups.
Yeah, and I think that's something we don't always get in the popular telling, right?
Right.
That this was not a society with just one monolithic set of beliefs.
No, absolutely not. People were searching, grasping for something.
Right.
And they were going in all sorts of directions to find it.
So we say Rasputin, and everyone thinks, okay, the evil monk whispering in the Tsar's ear.
Like the puppet master.
Right. But Radziwill, I think, brings something that we often miss, which is that his power wasn't just about his proximity to the royal family. It was something deeper.
This tapping into this mystical current that ran through Russian society.
That's it. And it wasn't just a top-down thing.
Right.
It was bottom-up as well, this deep yearning among ordinary people.
Right, and the way she sets the stage by describing Rasputin himself, right? She calls him an uncouth peasant.
Oh, yeah, that's a deliberate choice of words.
It is. It's setting him apart.
Yeah, highlighting that difference from the refined aristocracy.
But then she uses this Russian term, remenchik.
Right.
And she says, he was a shrewd operator.
Yeah, he understood the mood of the era, the desperation.
Right, so he wasn't this naive, holy fool.
Well, no, there was a real cunning there.
Street smarts.
Yeah, almost a street smart kind of intelligence.
Right, and that contrast, right, between that and the sort of out-of-touch aristocracy, I think is really important.
It is. It speaks to how he could navigate that system, manipulate it.
And the groups that she describes, I mean, you talk about searching for meaning. This is
where it gets wild.
The baby killers, the stranglers, the jumpers.
It sounds like something out of a horror movie.
It really does.
But these are real groups with these extreme practices and beliefs.
So you can see how in this environment, someone like Rasputin could find fertile ground.
Absolutely. This intense spiritual hunger, that was present in Russia.
Right.
It wasn't just about established religion.
Right.
People were yearning for something more, something different.
And then she gets into the Klisti.
Oh yes, the Klisti.
Now this is a group shrouded in secrecy.
A lot of whispers.
Rumors.
Sure.
Rituals that were, well, let's just say unconventional.
Unconventional is putting it mildly.
Whirling dances, trances, all aimed at achieving some kind of ecstatic state.
Right, this idea of pushing the body to its limits to experience the divine.
But then there's this darker side.
Yeah, this idea that you could find spiritual enlightenment through acts that most would consider immoral.
Right, like the breaking of taboos was somehow a pathway
right.
to something higher.
Transcending earthly limitations.
And this is where Radziwill says Rasputin takes this and perverts it even further.
Yeah, he twists it to his own advantage.
Makes himself the only way.
The sole conduit to salvation.
Right. Demand absolute obedience.
Classic power play.
It is, isn't it? I mean...
Prey on people's fears. Their hopes, present yourself as indispensable.
And so now we have this figure, this uncouth peasant, as she calls him.
Right, with his questionable connections.
How does he get into the royal court?
Well, that's where the story takes a really interesting turn.
Yeah.
And Radziwill points to the Tsarevich Alexei and his hemophilia.
Of course, the heir to the throne.
And the royal family is understandably desperate for a cure.
Right, any relief for their son.
And this creates this incredible vulnerability.
Which Rasputin is able to exploit.
Master.
And then there's Madame Verabova.
Yes, that's
this close confidant of the Empress.
Utterly devoted to her.
And she believes in Rasputin's power.
Hook, line, and sinker.
So she becomes this bridge between these two worlds.
between the mystical, the almost underworld that Rasputin comes from, and the inner sanctum of the royal family.
It's remarkable, isn't it?
It is.
And Radziwill makes it clear that it's not so much that the Tsar himself is completely under Rasputin's spell,
Right.
but the Empress,
Empress Alexandra, yeah.
with her deep religiosity, her anxieties about her son.
She's completely swayed by him.
She believes in him, absolutely.
And that creates this incredible dynamic within the family.
Which Rasputin uses to his advantage.
Oh, absolutely. He understands the power of that relationship.
You know, it's so interesting to read Radziwill's account of her own encounter with Rasputin,
Oh, yes. What a scene.
because she sees him without the myth.
You know?
The veil is lifted. She sees the cunning peasant, the muzik, as she calls him.
Yeah, playing the game.
And she really emphasizes the contrast between this rough, unpolished man
Yeah.
and the sophistication of the court.
And yet somehow,
But here's the thing, right?
Yeah.
Maybe that was part of his appeal.
that rawness, that authenticity,
Right, he was seen as more connected to the real Russia.
than those aloof aristocrats.
So it's this paradox.
It is a fascinating one.
And she does note that some people she thinks might have exaggerated his power.
Oh, sure, to serve their own agendas.
Right, but the perception of his influence was undeniable.
And incredibly damaging.
So you have this uncouth peasant
Right.
pulling strings.
And this speaks to the fragility of the system itself, doesn't it?
It really does.
That someone like that could gain such a foothold.
And then there's the women
Oh, this is a disturbing aspect.
drawn to him seeking guidance or healing,
Vulnerable women looking for answers,
and they become completely devoted to him.
even abandoning their family.
She gives this heartbreaking example of a mother begging for her daughters to be saved.
A really dark side to his influence.
So you see, it's not just politics.
No, it's very personal. It's ruining lives.
As his influence grows, so does the opposition.
The whispers become shouts.
Right, from rumors to accusation.
App and condemnation.
And then this key moment, the monk Iliador denounces him as a heretic.
A former ally turning on him.
And it's public.
Very much so. A real turning point.
Shows you the tide is turning.
Yeah, the cracks are starting to show.
Then you have the failed assassination attempt.
Which only hardens the divisions.
Right.
Makes him a martyr in the eyes of some.
And in World War I,
A global catastrophe.
you'd think that would overshadow everything else.
Right, push Rasputin to the side.
But Radziwill argues the opposite.
The war actually made things worse.
It did. The war exposed all the weaknesses of the system.
The Tsar takes command of the army, leaves the Empress in charge back in Petrograd.
Under Rasputin's sway,
Every defeat, every hardship becomes linked to him.
he becomes the scapegoat.
The embodiment of everything that's wrong.
And then Radziwill brings up this really interesting theory about foreign manipulation.
Oh yes, the German connection.
She suggests German agents might be working behind the scenes
Funneling money to people in Rasputin's circle
to destabilize Russia.
to sow chaos.
It's hard to prove,
Yeah, it speaks to the paranoia of the time.
but it's a fascinating idea.
A glimpse into that world of espionage and intrigue.
And then, of course, his assassination.
A brutal end.
Radziwill frames it as this act of desperation,
They believed he was leading Russia to ruin.
and the reaction is incredible.
Jubilation release.
People celebrating in the streets.
He had become that hated, that feared.
But Radziwill is careful to say that he wasn't the sole cause of the empire's collapse.
No, she sees him more as a symptom.
Right.
A particularly ugly symptom of deeper problem.
The weakness of the Tsar,
The unpopularity of the Empress.
their reliance on this false prophet,
She says the seeds of revolution were there long before Rasputin.
the inequality, the autocracy.
He just accelerated the process.
And so the Tsar, more and more isolated, influenced by the Empress and her faith in Rasputin.
While the people are suffering, the army is crumbling.
It all comes crashing down.
Abdication revolution, the end of a dynasty.
And Radziwill leaves us with this question.
Yeah, a haunting one.
Was Rasputin a singular force of evil or a reflection of a broken system?
I mean, it makes you think, doesn't it?
It really does, about the nature of power, how easily things can unravel.
And if we connect it to today, right? What are the vulnerabilities in our own systems?
What forces are at work that we might not even be aware of?
What lessons can we learn from this?
It's a sobering thought, isn't it?
It is. History might seem like something distant, but it speaks to us.
It does. It shows us the patterns.
The dangers of unchecked power.
The need to be vigilant,
To question, to be skeptical.
especially of those who claim to have all the answers.
Exactly, because history has a way of repeating itself.
It does if we don't pay attention.
And that's why we're here to help you understand it.
To make sense of it,
So you can be informed, engaged.
and hopefully avoid repeating the mistakes of the past.
Because the stakes are always high.
They are.
And that's the power of history.
It's a deep dive that never ends.
And we'll keep exploring it together.
We will. Thanks for joining us.